Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as we warmly, with a round of applause, welcome His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, who is joined by His Excellency, the President of the Democratic Republic of Sao Tome.
Ghana Mampani, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And our bedu Kempinski has say na nekoso ahanyina NSA Africa Trade Summit 2026. We ni di kan kra Africa for nyina ye kan ho abom na ya ye enhye na ya dwendwen kwan ya befa so na sane ya na bribia no ye raw materials e wo my Ghana mu ne abibre mu ha sei ye ya na ya export ko amano ne wabra ye mfa value bia nka ho nti ama ye nya so ska bebre no ye be kwan betimi akan ho abom na yetimi agina brane yetimi process ye bibia ansana akopie mu ewo adwaman so ewo amanone eno nti assemti omde ato sa adwumade so financing Africa's industrialization, developing industrial value chains, beneficiation and market integration. Na adwumade na se no Ghana Mampani any the keynote speaker na busua niam e course wo hon sem e course so ni nyina no Ghana News TV ni ebe ba beto monim.
I humbly ask you to remain standing for the opening prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Reverend Father Gerald Owusu Amankwetia.
Among our industry. Abusia ha Ghana News TV so message say and then they can about him and also subscribe me din and then Nana Sefa Bobo. Mr. Wa wo send this cafe amanoni abo my Ghana mu a lemfi and I make come for the amount download the lemfi sisi a nebo news ehemu asofra code na omunche usika so wo UK wo America wo Canada and Europe bia wo de also send this cabo my Ghana mu no lemfi na yagia tum instant utimi send ko mobile money mu na utimi so send ko niban bank account money yi babra mu nje usika bia nti download lemfi sisi a na fa de onku abuso yan ko ye nti Ghana Mampani and in penny for who and may
the summit strengthen the partnership among us. We ask all this through your Son Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, who is God forever and ever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Honor, please be upstanding as we bring His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita. Kindly resume your seats. Thank you very much, Your Excellency and my brother, Carlos Villanova, President of Sao Tome and Principe, Your Excellency, former Prime Minister of Côte d'Ivoire, Pascal Affi-N'Guessan, our Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare, and other ministers of state who are present here. Mr. Javé Kofi Jondo, founder of EcoBank and ASCAI, we're happy to have you here with us today. Hardworking Benedicta was formerly our secretary to the Socialist International, and she's transmogrified into the African Trade Chamber as Jonah, who in his older age, now tells it as it is, and let the chips fall where they may. He says we should be boldly selfish in Africa, and we should be inward-looking, very inward-looking. And also, if we are to break through, we must demand disruption. We must disrupt the system. Thank you, Sir Sam. Senior government officials who are present here, key stakeholders from the international trade system, captains of industry from Ghana and across Africa, sponsors and partners of the 2026 Africa Trade Summit, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media. It's a great honor for me to join you today at this Africa Trade Summit under the timely theme of financing Africa's industrialization, developing industrial value chains, beneficiation, and market integration. Your presence here today reflects our shared determination to secure Africa's economic future. Africa stands at a historic turning point. Our generation's defining task is economic independence. Political freedom without economic transformation is incomplete. We can no longer accept an economic model that consigns Africa to exporting raw materials and importing finished goods. That model is a neo-colonial arrangement that is designed to trap Africa in perpetual poverty. It is important for Africa to industrialize on the basis of its comparative advantages. Manufacturing and agro-processing creates jobs, they raise incomes, deepen skills, and anchor inclusive growth. They enable us to retain more value from our own resources and build resilient economies. And yet today, Africa's share of global manufacturing remains low, below 2%. Too many of our economies are locked into low productivity and primary production, compelling millions of young Africans to seek opportunities elsewhere. We must act urgently if we are to change this narrative. The central question before us is simple. How do we finance Africa's industrialization at the required scale and speed? Industrialization is capital intensive, yet access to long-term affordable finance remains constrained, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises that employ the majority of Africa's industrial workforce. Shallow financial markets, high interest rates, debt pressures, and limited non-extractive investments continue to slow our progress. These constraints demand new thinking and collective action. First, Africa must mobilize its domestic resources more effectively through improved revenue collection, stronger financial management, and decisive action taken against illicit financial flows. Second, we must unlock Africa's institutional capital. Our pension funds, our insurance companies, and sovereign wealth funds manage hundreds of billions of dollars. With the right instruments, industrial bonds, infrastructure funds, diaspora financing, and blended finance vehicles, this capital can be channeled into productive industrial investments. Our development finance institutions, including the Afri-Exim and the African Development Bank, must be further empowered to mobilize private capital and support regional industrial projects. Thirdly, government must actively crowd in private sector investment, public-private partnerships, risk-sharing mechanisms, and credit guarantees. These are essential if we are to finance our industrialization. However, investors will only commit where policies are stable, regulations are transparent, infrastructure is reliable, and the rule of law and democracy are respected. And finally, development partners and multilateral institutions have a critical role to play. Concessional finance, guarantees, and insurance instruments can de-risk industrial projects. At the same time, Africa must continue to advocate for reform of the global financial system to ensure fair access to capital and sustainable debt solutions. Africa's industrialization must be anchored in value addition and beneficiation. For decades, Africa has exported cocoa, oil, cotton, timber, and minerals in their raw form, only to re-import finished goods made from some of these same products at many times their original value. This model has deprived our economies of jobs, technology, and revenue. Consider cocoa, for which Ghana is one of the leading producers. Africa produces most of the world's cocoa, yet captures only a small fraction of the value of the global chocolate market. Similar imbalances exist in oil refining, textiles, and mineral processing. Beneficiation alters this equation by creating domestic industries, reducing imports, and increasing export earnings. Across the continent, encouraging progress is underway. In Ghana, we're deliberately shifting from a commodity export model to a value-added economy, prioritizing agro-processing, manufacturing, and industrial clusters that are aligned with our natural advantages. As part of our reset agenda for economic transformation, we're looking to add value to our exports, such as cocoa, cashews, oil palm, cassava, petroleum, gold, manganese, bauxite, etc. And on the issue of resource sovereignty, we must break the colonial mode of large foreign-owned concessions, extracting value for the benefit of foreign interests and entities while Africa remains in poverty. And as Jonah said, we must be boldly selfish and claim a fairer share of our natural resource endowment. In Ghana, I'll give you a simple example. We're exercising greater sovereignty over our natural resources. The establishment of the Ghana Gold Board has given us greater control over our gold exports. In 2024, total gold exports from the small-scale mining sector was said to amount to 63 tons. Of this volume, the foreign exchange repatriation accounted for only about 40 tons of the exported gold. 23 tons of forex did not come back. Since the establishment of the Gold Board in April 2025, exports from the small-scale mining sector to date have increased to 104 tons, with 100% of the foreign exchange repatriated through our central bank. Ghana is also increasing the participation of indigenous Ghanaian companies in mining and other natural resource extraction activities. Local content laws have been passed that make it mandatory for non-Ghanaian investors to partner with local companies in all mining and extractive investment activity. Industrialization cannot succeed within fragmented national markets. Africa's future lies in regional value chains. Not every country can produce everything, but together we can build competitive industries across our borders where raw materials, intermediate goods, and final products and finished products move seamlessly within our regions. This is how other areas have industrialized. To support this, Africa must invest in transport corridors, energy grids, digital infrastructure, while harmonizing standards and regulations. Industrial integration requires market integration. The African Continental Free Trade Area is the most ambitious integration project ever in the history of our continent. By creating a single market of over 1.3 billion people, African Continental Free Trade Area provides the scale African industry has long lacked to expand. It transforms Africa into a viable manufacturing and investment destination. And Ghana is proud to host the secretariat of this continental body and to be among the early adopters of trading under its preferences. But the African Continental Free Trade Area will not automatically industrialize Africa. It must be deliberately linked to industrial policy, infrastructure investment, and enterprise development. Reducing non-tariff barriers, simplifying customs procedures, improving logistics, and investing in digital trade infrastructure are essential if the African Continental Free Trade Area is to deliver on its promise. Ghana's experience reinforces key lessons. Industrialization works when policies are deliberate, infrastructure is reliable, skills are developed, and macroeconomic stability is maintained. Investments in transport, energy, and technical education are foundational. Equally important is good governance. Investor confidence thrives where institutions are strong and policies are predictable. Africa's industrial transformation cannot be achieved solely by governments. Governments must provide the leadership and stability. The private sector must invest and innovate. Financial institutions must design long-term financing solutions. Development partners must align with Africa's priorities. Pan-African institutions must coordinate and remove the barriers to integration. As I conclude, let us envision an Africa with thriving industrial corridors, integrated supply chains, and competitive factories producing for African and global markets. An Africa where prosperity is shared and opportunity is created at home. This vision is bold but achievable. What is required now is urgency and resolve. We must move from declarations to delivery, from agreements to implementation, and from vision to construction. Let this Africa Trade Summit be remembered as a moment when commitments were matched with action and partnerships were forged to power Africa's industrial future. On this note, I have the privilege and honor to declare this Africa Trade Summit 2026 officially opened. Thank you. God bless Africa.
Warriors say this is gungulum 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 gung. This is Ghana News TV. The time is 6 o'clock. Let me follow Ghana.
So send this cafe amanoni ab Africa ha. You slam five. Say ye fear wo pese won tono. You slam five. A dan ya na say Japadia when it that's why pese oto Africa ha no. You slam five. So wo send this sika amodofo e de aboa no Africa ha. You slam five. Sanso e na say uti obi school fees amano a. You see lemfi. Yenti ame kamfo lemfi ama on say utimi send this car efa lemfi so a e ma ni begu bank account mu sanso e na timi begu mobile money account mu eno achi nso no de bia lemfi e wo daily rate a e ma hu sika dodo a wo send a wo benya lemfi e secured na wo send this car enche na nipa a wo send ama no ne nsa aka lemfi wo USA, Canada, UK, Italy, Germany, Ireland, Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, Portugal and France. What the lemfi send this car Unchiare, Bomadia, they use to be code NEWS News. Now say, and any day they can register or lemfi swa. Unya bonus, Sanso, and I use to chance swa. Your bonuses are Hodwa, Yadema.
Welcome to this pivotal Africa Trade Summit 2026, where we gather not merely to discuss Africa's economic narrative, but to seize its destiny in a world on the brink of rupture. Ladies and gentlemen, the frost-dusted halls of Davos echoed just a few days ago with a stark warning from Canadian Prime Minister, my friend Mark Carney, a message that resonates like thunder across our continent. In his address titled, Principled and Pragmatic, Canada's Path, he declared the end of the nice story of a rules-based global order, ushering in a brutal reality where great powers wield economics, as weapons, tariffs as leverage, and supply chains as chokeholds. He invoked the ancient Melian dialogue: the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. And he issued a clarion call to middle and emerging powers: if we are not at the table, we are on the menu. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa is at that crossroads. The new world is not looming. Indeed, it is here. It is crashing upon our shores with unrelenting force. United States protectionism surges under aggressive leadership, imposing tariffs that disrupt our exports and inflate our costs. China's expanding influence offers partnerships, but demands dependencies that bind us tighter to external whims. Climate change and the crisis accompanying it, fueled by global inaction, devastate our agriculture and our communities. Ladies and gentlemen, supply chains, once bridges of opportunity, are now battlegrounds, weaponized in trade wars that leave Africa as collateral damage. Deaths mount from these shocks, investments flee amid volatility, and our youth, our greatest asset, watch opportunities evaporate. This is no distant threat. It is a near reality pounding at our doors. We must respond with urgency, or we will be devoured. For too long, we have all labored, we have slumbered under labels such as emerging, rising, awakening, comforting euphemisms that mask a harsh reality. Growth without transformation is a mirage. We've expanded economies, yes, but without industrial death, that growth is sandcastles washed away by the tides of global upheaval. Ladies and gentlemen, industrialization is not a luxury. It is our shield. Indeed, it is our sword. It forges resilience where value is captured locally, skills are honed, technology is mastered, and prosperity withstands commodity cycles and external shocks. Without it, ladies and gentlemen, we remain suppliers to the world, feeding the beast that grow stronger whilst we grow weaker. Prime Minister Kane's words cut to the bone. The world is in rapture. It is not in transition. Institutions like the WTO and the UN are crumbling as great powers exploit vulnerabilities. For Africa, this means our raw materials fuel electric cars in distant factories, our cocoa sweetens chocolates branded abroad, our oil powers engines we don't build. We capture crumbs while others feast on the value. Global politics, ladies and gentlemen, amplifies this injustice. Tariffs from superpowers trap us in low value chains. Conflicts disrupt our supplies, and coercion from afar dictates our terms. But herein lies the opportunity. Kane challenges us with middle powers must unite, build coalitions, and assert control. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa, with its 1.4 billion people, with its vast resources and youthful dynamism, is no weakling. We are the emerging force that can redefine the table, or we will risk being served upon it. This is the moment for Africa to be selfish, unapologetically so, boldly selfish in pursuing our interests. To distant agendas, no more exporting raw material potential while importing finished dependency. Selfish means prioritizing. Africa first, beneficiating our minerals on African soil, processing our agriculture into global grants, manufacturing pharmaceuticals that secure our health sovereignty. Selfish means demanding fair terms in every deal, rejecting exploitation disguised as aid, and leveraging our collective weight to negotiate from strength. Kane urged middle powers to stop pretending about the other's flaws, to name realities and act. Africa, let us name it. The old world profited from our fragmentation. The new world demands our unity. Let's be selfish, yes, but in a way that uplifts all Africans, creating jobs that dignify, wealth that recirculates, and futures that inspire. To achieve this, ladies and gentlemen, we must turn inward, fiercely inward-looking, harnessing our own strength rather than chasing external validation. AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, is not just a treaty. It is our lifeline, our fortress in this ruptured world. Yet, for far too many years, it has lingered as aspiration, not action. We must wake up. We must implement AFTA with ruthless urgency, harmonize standards across borders, streamline customs that bleed time and money, build infrastructure that connects our markets, and enforce rules that protect African producers. Imagine, just imagine, a truck laden with Nigerian textiles rolling seamlessly to Kenyan factories. Ghanaian cocoa transformed into Ethiopian chocolates, exported continent-wide. South Africa tech innovating for North Africa energy grids. This inward focus isn't isolation, ladies and gentlemen, it is empowerment. As Kanye described Canada's path, let's cut barriers, diversify, invest in homegrown strength. For Africa, AFTA is the path, creating a market of scale that attracts investment, reduces dependencies, and positions us as shapers, not suppliers. Delay no longer. The new world waits for no one. Our theme, ladies and gentlemen, financing Africa's industrialization, developing industrial value, beneficiation, and market integration, demands disruption, not dialogue. Africa overflows with resources, yet we lack the systems to forge them into enduring wealth. We have the markets, but they are splintered silos, not integrated powerhouses. Ideas surge, but mechanisms to scale them stall. This pattern has reached its breaking point. We must reorganize trade flows, not insert deeper into exploitative chains, but restructure them around African priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, let's export smarter. Let's climb value chains where processing, assembly, and innovation happen here. Let's position ourselves to determine power determines power. So position determines power. Volume alone is vulnerability. Let's consider the mining sector. Our continent holds, as we said earlier, the world's critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, rare earths, fueling the green transition. Yet, we extract and export raw, while batteries and tech are made elsewhere. Beneficiation isn't optional, it is urgent. Cluster industries around mines, processed locally, keep value chains African. In agro-processing, our fertile lands produce abundance, but raw exports perpetuate poverty cycles. Let's build supply chains that turn harvest into processed goods, juices, textiles, foods, exporting competitiveness, not commodities. Pharmaceuticals. The pandemic exposed us. It exposed our fragility. Dependence on foreign supplies is a strategic chokehold. Industrialized health, manufacture vaccines, drugs, equipment here to claim or reclaim our sovereignty. Infrastructure, unreliable energy, clogged ports, frictional borders, impose penalties that kill industry. Let's invest now, connect seamlessly, slash costs. Bridge, investment promotion, let's build bridges that prospers to bankable projects, ready for capital. Let's make it as inclusive as possible, pull in SMEs, women, youth, enclaves breed resentment, broad participation builds resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, these are not abstracts, they are actionable imperatives. As summit design confronts them, preliminaries demand political will to sustain strategies of elections and crises. Finance engagements will bridge grids, extending horizons for capital, private capital. Roundtables will converge on practice. Let's commit here to timelines, funding, partnerships. The African Trade Chamber provides continuity. Let this be the spark that ignites sustained action. But urgency, ladies and gentlemen, demands more than plans. It demands awakening. Africa, wake up to the new world. The rapture Kanye described is our alarm. Great powers carve spheres, but we can carve our own. Let's be inspired by history. Kwame Nkrumah's vision of unity, Mandela's resilience, Wangara Maathei's defiance. Let's imagine an Africa where youth innovate in solar-powered factories, women lead agro-industries, and our cities hum with home-grade manufacturing. A continent not begging for scraps, but commanding respect, exporting solutions to climate, tech, and health. This is possible, but only if we act selfishly, inwardly, urgently. Let's implement AFTA, not as bureaucracy, but as revolution. Form African coalitions, variable geometry, as Candace says, for trade, security, innovation. Let's stop pretending that the old order serves us. Name the exploitation, build our strength. In this reorganizing world, delay is defeat. Candace's part is now is ours. Pragmatic, principled pragmatism. Let's uphold values like sovereignty and sustainability while pragmatically pursuing interests. Africa, let's be the middle power bloc that tips the balance. Diversify partners. Let's define cohesion. Industrialize with purpose. Together, we don't survive. Indeed, we thrive. We create wealth that endures, jobs that empower, a legacy that inspires generation. The table, ladies and gentlemen, awaits us. Let's claim our seat. I look forward to our deliberations, igniting the transformation over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Let me first start by commending the government of Ghana and the African Trade Chamber for convening this summit. This is happening at a critical moment for Africa's industrial and trade transformation. I'm representing the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, but please also allow me to speak as an African. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa stands at a turning point. Yes, the African Continental Free Trade Area has created an unprecedented market opportunity. Yes, global value chains are being reconfigured. Demand for strategic minerals, manufactured goods, and green technologies is rising. And Africa's demographic and entrepreneurial potential remains one of its greatest strengths. Yet, a central question remains. Will Africa continue exporting raw materials? I say, of course not. Africa should increase its trade in value-added goods produced on the continent. Too much of Africa's trade remains commodity-based, with limited value retained locally. Many industrial ambitions struggle to move from policy to production. While Africa has a clear vision, from UNIDO's perspective, the core challenge lies in pace and scale, marked by timid integration and slow execution. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's clear the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfTA, will not deliver all its promises without industrialization. And industrialization will not succeed without trade. What I want to emphasize here is that AfTA should not be seen only as a trade agreement. It's also an industrial agreement. Its success depends on Africa's ability to produce competitively, process locally, and trade regionally. This requires a decisive shift from extraction to beneficiation, from primary production to manufacturing, and from fragmented national efforts to integrated regional value chains. Obviously, trade policy alone will not achieve this. Industrial policy, investment, infrastructure, energy, and finance must move together. Africa's comparative advantages are clear, but comparative advantage is not destiny. The challenge before us is to convert endowment into industrial capability. For example, minerals into refined materials and manufactured inputs, agriculture output into processed and branded products, energy potential in reliable power for industry, and market size into economy of scale. All these require deliberate choices and consistency. Let us agree that not everything can be produced everywhere. Regional specialization, shared infrastructure, and coordinated and harmonized policies are essential. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa has a vision. Africa has vision, has ambition and resources, natural, human, financial. Now it needs more implementation. One good question to ask is why too many projects remain at concept stage in Africa? Considering the findings of many studies, large volume of capital remains untapped because of projects not investment ready. In this case, our focus should then be on project preparation, risk sharing, concrete demand commitments, and partnerships that crowd in long-term finance, bringing together governments, development finance institutions, and the private sector. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me emphasize one final point. Inclusion is not a social add-on to industrialization. It's a productivity imperative. SMEs, youth-led and women-owned enterprises must be integrated as suppliers, processors, and innovators within industrial value chains. If Africa industrializes without its domestic enterprises, growth will remain shallow and vulnerable. Inclusive industrial growth must therefore be designed into value chains from the outset. As we move towards the fourth industrial development decade for Africa, IDDA 4, UNIDO remains committed to supporting member states through modern industrial policy advisory, value chain and corridor-based industrialization, investment-ready programs for country partnerships, and concrete pipelines of bankable industrial projects. Ladies and gentlemen, this summit offers a great opportunity to move faster and to scale up in a coordinated and integrated manner. And UNIDO looks forward to working with all of you. I wish you a successful summit, and I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to welcome you to Accra for the inaugural edition of the Africa Trade Summit, an annual convening of the African Trade Chamber, a private sector-led platform with the vision to facilitate intra-Africa trade as a complementary institution to the AFTA Secretariat, private sector-led, to drive industrial development and investment promotion across the continent. For much of Africa's modern history, economic questions have been framed as debates about possibility, what might be achieved, what could be built one day. What is the era ending with as we speak? The question before us now is not what Africa can be, but whether it will organize itself fast enough to claim what is already within reach. We meet at a point where global industry is being reorganized and reassembled in real time. Supply chains have been redrawn, energy systems are being rebuilt, production is being repositioned closer to markets and closer to resources. These shifts are happening now, with or without Africa. Africa enters this moment with scale, resources, and people. But without the in-depth industrial policies required to shape outcomes within our favor, this gap would be visible for years to come. Africa holds more than 30% of the world's known mineral resources, including minerals critical for energy transition, yet the continent accounts for less than 5% of global manufacturing output. Intra-African trade remains below 15%, whilst other regions trade largely within themselves. Last year, Africa spent over $80 billion importing food, much of it derived from crops grown on African soil. These outcomes are not accidents, ladies and gentlemen. They reflect how production is being organized and capital is being deployed, and how policy has been aligned or misaligned with industry. The African Trade Chamber was created because 3 questions could no longer be ignored. First, why do African economies generate enough growth without generating enough industrial jobs, competitive businesses, and resilient exports? And what precisely is broken in the way industrialization is organized? Second, why does capital in Africa move more easily into imports and short-term returns than factories, processing plants, and industrial infrastructure? What must change for that to reverse? And thirdly, why have decades of policies, agreements, programs failed to convert Africa's resources and markets into a stronger industrial value chain? What must be done now, and what must be done differently to ensure that we turn the tide? These are the questions that justify why this summit and the African Trade Chamber exist. And they lead us to a difficult path and a difficult truth. Industrialization is hard work. It is hard work for governments. It cannot be delivered by one ministry, however competent. It requires ministries of trade and industry to work in step with energy authorities to generate reliable power, with transport and infrastructure agencies to ensure goods move at cost and speed, with planning bodies to understand industrial land use, with ministries of finance to align fiscal policy to production, and with central banks to recognize that industry requires long-term capital, not only short-term stability. This is where industrial policy becomes decisive. Industrialization happens when governments take deliberate steps and decisions to prioritize sectors, sequence infrastructure, coordinate incentives, and maintain direction enough for enterprises to invest with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, the African Trade Chamber has organized its work around industry councils. Whether it is mineral, agro-processing, pharmaceutical, energy, logistics, manufacturing, the objective is to move Africa from exporting imports to building industries, from fragmented markets to integrated production systems. Industrialization is equally a hard work for the private sector. It requires enterprises to move beyond the comfort of imports and arbitrage and into a more demanding work of production. It requires enterprises to invest in systems, skills, governance, and management. It also requires enterprises that can withstand scrutiny, deliver at scale, and operate efficiently enough to earn the confidence of financiers and long-term investors. The African Continental Free Trade Area sharpens this task. It will reward preparation and expose hesitation. Firms must meet standards, move goods efficiently, and operate across borders in a much faster pace. Those protected by inefficiencies will not. And it is through this that our industry councils exist to ensure that African businesses and enterprises are ready in practice and not just by rhetoric. The world beyond this room will not slow its pace. And we are here because Africa's industrial future must now be shaped deliberately. The window is narrow and the responsibility is ours. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the 2026 African Trade Summit. And for our international guests, I say, Mohe Akwaba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, police band. Ladies, with our program, His Excellency has another engagement, but we will go straight into our high-level presidential panel, for which I will have the honor of speaking to His Excellency the President of Sao Tome and Principe, President Carlos. We are migrating into our high-level presidential panel.
Hey, Patrick, I'm seeing you later in the afternoon.
You may now be seated.
Okay. Hey, Uncle. How are you? You're still looking well. Great shows. Thank you. How are you? Hey, good. I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, Shabak. Hey, as for you, as you cross the Atlantic like you're walking in the park. Welcome. Yes, yes. I had a good visit with my mother. Yes, yes. No problem. No problem. Yes, we'll talk. Okay, it will be at home. Thank you.
So send this cafe amanoni aba Africa ha Usulem fi say ye fear wo pese wo nto no Usulem fi edan ya na say japade a wani da so a wo pese oto Africa ha no Usulem fi so wo send this sika ama odofo e de aboa no wo Africa ha USLM5 sanso and as a uchi obi school fees amanoa USLM5 yenti amekanfo lemfa ama one say utimi send this car efa lemfa so a e money begu bank account mu sanso and etimi begu mobile money account mu eno achi nso no de bia lemfa e wo daily rate a e ma hu sika dodo a wo send a wo benya lemfa e secured na wo send this car enche na nipa wo send amano no ne nsaka lemfa wo USA Canada UK Italy Germany Ireland Netherlands Spain Belgium Portugal and France what the lemfa send this car untu ahwe bomodian dey use me code NEWS news na say ene any day they can register or lemfa so a unya bonus sanso and how use chance so a ye wo bonuses ahodo a ye de ma
Menu makwekwe sa sempa kania. Semenam na meti asempa na mamo amane a na ma no keka me. Anyambia wate ANS Trading Agency Limited nka. Sa wo ka say door to door for no de ani watwa. Esan so bia ne wa wo say wo ho sa door to door business nim. Wo nneoma wo UK a wo de ko Ghana. Ana say Germany a wo de ko Ghana. 3 to 5 weeks e be kwa kodu nipa ne puno anu say try. Na de mo demonstration ko say adwuma de ewe mu ne say wo ho bo no. E da form say boko. ANS Trading Agency Limited. E wo air freight special service. Ana nneoma ne ye de be fa play. Entintempa na akwa kodu. Obetima fa sa plan we ya so de nneoma free Ghana akwa UK ana Germany. FGG dem which na also agina ye na men drop bomb. ANS Trading Agency Limited pe and a 40 footer any 20 footer container. Ya fe UK ediko Ghana ana Germany ediko Ghana. Omo manuoma ye mere import o export o dem there for you. Omo Ghana na money 0249 170 423. UK has over free 0790 802 7527. Germany 09173 771 2733. Ubenya ANS Trading Agency Limited. Our West Croydon ANS Trading Agency Limited. Quantum Brantem. Wana beboya baso. Maybe next time in your fill up from the bebro.